Today, I am super excited. My guest is Renee Fraser. She is the founder and CEO of Fraser Communications, which is the largest female-owned and led integrated advertising agency in Southern California. Some of their clients include Lexus, East West Bank, New Vision, Hyundai, and First Five California, among many others. What I love is Renee not only does that, but she serves on the board of a lot of amazing organizations. She is currently the chair of the board for Wise and Healthy Aging. She serves on the boards for Girls Inc. and help me say is it NABU? NABO LA.
Also, I'm on 2020 Women on Boards, and I think I'm also very proud of being on the Red Cross board, Los Angeles region.
Yeah. It's awesome. So what's so amazing is we are going to dive deeply into success and what that looks like. But Renee is a living example that you can be at the head and the top of your game in your industry, as well as really being a huge contributor to the world at large. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. I hope I can live up to what you said.
You already have. Like, you being you in the world is more. We're just excited, to really hear how you do it. So what I want to start with, just diving right in, is how you define success.
Success to me is a combination of personal happiness, meaningful impact on people's lives and feeling and seeing that, in both in terms of my employees and then in my philanthropic work, and having a happy company. It's odd, but I think of my company, we have 33 employees, I think of it as an organic growing entity that you have to feed. You have to give it fun, you have to give it happiness, you have to give it love, recognition, and when you do that, it grows and does a better job. And there's a lot of research that shows that if you have happy employees, you'll have happy customers. And I truly believe that. We have free yoga on Fridays. We have a wellness room. We're using the Enjoy Global platform to recognize our values and show gratitude to each other. And I have a couple of policies at the agency. I do walk-arounds to make sure I say hello to people, ask about their mom in Chicago, their dog, that may be ill. Always kind of touch base with people at a personal level, not just at a business level. Engage the level of happiness in their lives. Not that I can affect all of it, but I really believe when you spend 8 to 9 hours with people, you should enjoy your time with them.
A couple of things. First of all, you have your Ph.D. in
psychology, social psych.
Social psych, which is really, I think, important to note because this isn't just something that you think is a good idea. Like, this is something you're an absolute expert in and have been studying your entire life.
Well, there's a lot of science behind it, and now neuroscience too, about how the brain reacts, and oxytocin that's introduced in the brain when you're happy, and the feelings that you get, and creating those feelings on a practice basis, which is good. My background, I never expected to be in advertising. So my dad was in the ad business, and when I was 16 or 17, he had a day to go into the agency and learn about the business, and I really enjoyed it. It was fun to see the computers and the colors and all the ideas. My dad worked on Breck shampoo and juicy fruit gum. But I remember coming home and telling my father, I was the oldest child, so usually the oldest child gets a lot of attention, very achievement oriented, but I said, I'll never be in the advertising business. And he said, why? Why, after you were just here? And I said, I think all those smart and creative people should be helping to solve the world's problems. They should be focused. I remember even talking about poverty and the discrepancies in education. And of course, at 16 or 17, I thought those could all be fixed if just the right people got involved. But I ended up getting a Ph.D. in psychology at USC. After I finished the degree, I married one of my professors in the psychology department. I didn't take a class from him, but he was a tenured faculty, and I realized we couldn't both be in teaching in academia, although I'd been teaching while I was there, and I loved it. So I went out into the real world and got a job in market research. And that was great because that applied social psychology. How do you persuade people? What are their attitudes? What are their feelings? How do you create those feelings? And pretty soon I was doing a lot of market research for ad agencies, and one of them recruited me in to run their research department. And then that evolved, and I ended up running a regional office, the Pacific region, for Bozell and Jacobs. a lot of politics. They asked me to leave, and I thought, okay, I got fired, not for anything I'd done wrong, there's just too many people at the top. But that was my chance to start my own business, and my dad said to me, at the time he was sick, unfortunately, he was dying from lung cancer. He'd been a smoker. He was very much of the Mad Men era.
Yeah.
Remember, Renee, what you told me about advertising to solve the world's problems and how you can do that through communications and creativity? I took a deep breath and said, yeah, Dad, I remember that. He said, well, I never had the courage to start my own firm. I'm amazed you're doing it. And he said, why don't you think about that? So I did. So when I started my own firm, it was all about using communications to make the world a better place. And that's been my mantra for the last 20 years. I used to be very quiet about it. It wasn't very popular, and I thought it was a little feminine back in those days. But now it's become the right thing to talk about, and I'm much more confident to talk about it a lot. And I know it's what draws a lot of my employees to the firm.
So let's sit with that, because it was, you were speaking your truth before it was popular, before it was mainstream.
Yes.
and kind of the topic of the day, where I think now if everybody's jumping in to say that, is there a question of authenticity where actually this is who you are? So tell me a little bit about that moment. You're starting an agency, but you're going to do it differently.
Right.
You're a woman starting an agency, which is also...
Right, there weren't very many. This was 1998, so there weren't that many women starting firms. I didn't have any real role models. One of the challenges I've faced as I've gotten more mindful and self-reflective of my own behavior is I grew up in an era where you emulated men to show your strength, and I've learned that's not the right way any longer, and I've been able to be more in touch with my feminine side. But when I started the firm, I didn't have any real roadmap. I gave myself a year. I said, let's just see what I can do. And one of the things that did serve me well, which is a good piece of advice for everyone, is I treated everyone as if they were equal. The receptionists, the employees, the clients, and I always thought about their well-being, not just the money they were spending on advertising. And that's been true now with my clients today, where I think about their careers and their engagement. Anyway, served me well, because then I got assignments from some of the people I'd worked with. But I stayed away. So my fun way of talking about it is I sold a lot of beer, a lot of motorcycles, and a lot of really serious video games, Sega, Nintendo, violent video games. So now I'm making up for all of that ill will I maybe put into the world. So I went after healthcare. We deliberately went after clients where we knew we could make a difference. Educating people is really the time of the internet when people were learning. We had people called cyber. You have to stop for a second. Hypochondriacs. Instead of calling hypochondriacs, we call them cyberchondriacs. And we were doing a lot of psychological analysis of why people, how to empower people through healthcare. So that was one of my first clients, was UCLA Health System, which was wonderful. We actually changed the name. It was called Health System, and we did a lot of research for them, including with the chancellor, and they changed it to UCLA Healthcare, which remains its name. I'm proud of that.
What I love is, I think all of us, to some degree, understand the impact that marketing has on us, that we can be moved to do stuff by these messages.
Right.
So the people behind that, using their superpowers for good, consciously, would be wonderful. And you did that.
Yeah, we do that to this day. So our business is really interesting now with digital and social media. So we can identify people who have certain traits. For example, we're doing an opioid campaign to make people aware of opioids. And sadly, there are a lot of people who are using opioids because they were prescribed as prescription pain meds by their doctors. And your body actually acclimates, so you use more and more and more. People are addicted and don't realize it. They're highly dependent. And unfortunately, they're vulnerable to overdose, particularly when you combine drugs like a anti-anxiety drug or sleeping pill, alcohol, and an opioid at a high level. And as I said, people have acclimated their bodies, so they're using more. So in our work, we identify people who are prone to stress and anxiety and have used these drugs. And then we can get them messaging around the fact that there's alternatives and how to recognize that you may be overly dependent. We have a little quiz that we put online. So these are the kinds of questions. Do you get nervous when the bottle's empty and you can't wait to get the new ones? Do you take them more times than what the doctor prescribed? And we have lots of ways of talking in the vernacular that we heard in the research. So it's a way to teach people to be self-reflective, to empower themselves, and when do you ask your doctor, how do you do it? The interesting thing is we do that then with social media, we do it with radio and outdoor digital ads. Sadly, the Russians and some other forces have been doing the exact same techniques to convince people that are unhappy to do the wrong thing. And it's a new book out called Mind F by the gentleman who was a research director at Cambridge Analytica. And he did an interview on Terry Gross and talked about it, and the exact principles that they were using is what we do on the positive side. So it's sad for me to see it, but yes, we do this to do behavior change, to get people to change their habits and their choices.
Yeah, and I think even just for all of us to understand and be aware of what kind of messaging is coming towards us, and make sure that we're choosing messaging that is hopefully empowering us.
Right.
Taking a little bit of that responsibility individually as well.
Yeah, search for sites for positive things, not just fancy shoes or purses or whatever, or motorcycles, whatever you may be interested in. Be mindful of that, because they're retargeting you, and they'll send you the ads later. They're also doing profiles of you, so you can be conscious of the profile you create about yourself with your mindfulness, with your desire to do good in the world.